Exposed, the incredible journey of a black boy who transformed his fate against all odds. Malik Johnson stood at the edge of the school gym, heart racing as the science fair loomed ahead. A mix of excitement and dread filled him. He had poured his soul into a project that could change everything, a renewable energy model that harnessed the power of the sun. But as he glanced around, dark clouds of doubt shadowed his heart. What if they laughed? What if his dreams were just fantasies meant for kids like him, raised in a neighborhood meant to keep them down? At 12 years old, Malik was no stranger to the weight of the world. He felt it in every glance that brushed past him in the hallway, every snicker that followed his footsteps, and every clueless teacher who mistook his inquisitive nature for trouble. They didn't see him, they saw a kid from a struggling neighborhood, destined for failure. Yet, his mother's tenacity and his grandmother's wisdom sparkled like stars in his mind, urging him to rise above the chaos. He slid a finger across the smooth model he had crafted and felt the surge of ambition push back against the storm inside him, but the laughter came like a wave crashing against his resolve when he took his place before the judges, as coiling whispers turned into derisive snorts. Each chuckle felt like a blade, threatening to cut him down, to make him shrink into the shadows where he once felt safe. Would it really matter? His integrity battled with despair, and he was standing on a precipice, just one misstep away from giving up. Even as his palms slickened with sweat and his breath quickened, he questioned whether he should even be here, showcasing a dream no one believed in. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The sting of their ridicule clawed at Malik's insides. For a moment, he felt paralyzed, trapped in a loop of self-doubt and humiliation. They didn't know the sleepless nights, the quiet hours spent in the community center, where he found solace among books that spoke of possibilities and worlds beyond his own. But here, amidst a sea of faces, their laughter drowned out the voice of hope slowly rising within him. The fight for recognition collided with the urge to withdraw, as shadows of disappointment loomed larger. That he could feel his grandmother's words echoing in his mind, "Stand tall, boy. Don't let them dim your light." The fire she fanned within him began to flicker. Would he surrender to their mockery or redefine the narrative? The decision burrowed deep, churning in his stomach. With each beat of uncertainty, Malik felt something shift, a gust of determination weaving through the chaos, intertwining with his fears, clamoring for release. Could he step into the unknown? As he stood there, he felt the pressure of potential futures pressing down, unyielding, asking would he dance with doubt or embrace the dream? The crossroads lay before him. He could either capitulate to the presiding shadows or dare to soar beyond them. The audience's faces blurred into a nondescript collage, yet the question remained sharp: was this just the beginning of his journey, or would this moment forever mark his defeat? In that moment of chaos, when laughter reverberated against the walls and the judge's eyes glinted with skepticism, Malik felt an unseen force take root within him. The flicker of his grandmother's voice transformed into a blaze, illuminating the corners of self-doubt that had long remained shrouded in shadows. He inhaled deeply, tasting the bitterness of mockery mixed with a newfound resolve, a potent cocktail of fear and courage. Suddenly, it was as if time slowed. The audience morphed from a menacing horde into a sea of individual faces, each one a potential witness to his story. Was it really about winning their approval? Or was it about honoring the dreams etched into his heart? As Malik's gaze swept across the hall, he noticed a pair of eyes locked onto his. A girl from his class, Maya, sat at the back, her expression one of empathy rather than derision. In that fleeting connection, he drew strength. He wasn't alone. That he clenched his fists, the urge to explain, to elaborate on the science behind his project swirling within him. This model isn't just a cardboard structure or a fantasy, he suddenly blurted, his voice cutting through the laughter like a hot knife. It's a vision for us. For a cleaner world, for people like us, who might not even have a place in it yet. The tension in his chest lightened, his words now raced freely, fueled by urgency, desperation, and defiance. The sun is unlimited, like our potential. This project can teach us to harness what we have. With every word, the laughter waned, replaced with a palpable silence as if the room collectively caught its breath. The judges leaned forward, curiosity piquing. Malik could almost see the change in their expressions, no longer aghast, but intrigued. His nervous hands articulated the energy model, presenting with a newfound authority. He explained how solar panels collected sunlight, converting it into energy that could illuminate homes and power lives, much like what he hoped to do with his own. By the end of his presentation, he wasn't just recounting facts, he was sharing a story of resilience and aspirations. Yet, even as he basked in the afterglow of his words, Malik grappled with the harsh reality of rejection still lurking like a shadow. What if they still dismissed him? Would this moment prove futile? His heart hammered against his ribcage, the prospect of relentless doubt creeping back. Facing it head-on was daunting, yet he had lit a flame within, however fragile. As he stepped down, his legs felt like jelly, but he was vibrating with an energy he had never known. In that intense blend of vulnerability and triumph, he understood that this was more than just a science project. It was his identity crystallizing in expression. People would see him now not just a boy from a neighborhood defined by stereotypes, but a dreamer whose ingenuity had worth. The award ceremony approached, and that sense of anticipation surged again, a magnetic pull drawing him toward that potential victory. But just as excitement began to swell in his heart, a figure emerged from the crowd. Malik's breath caught in his throat. It was Mr. Henderson, the science teacher notorious for his scathing critiques and icy demeanor. His vindication now felt imminent. Malik steadied himself, determination hardening. The question that loomed before him provoked deeper reflection: how would he define this journey? Was he ready to confront not only his peers but the very adults who had either overlooked or underestimated him for too long? The moment to face Mr. Henderson was not just an opportunity, it was a test of everything he had worked for. As the curtain drew close on the event, Malik could sense that in this confrontation lay either his validation or his greatest challenge yet. Would he seize the narrative, or would Mr. Henderson frame it for him? Malik took a breath, grounding himself amidst the rising tide of anxiety. Mr. Henderson's expression, often a mask of indifference, felt like a chiseled stone, unforgiving yet intriguing. What he represented was more than just an authority figure, he symbolized a collective skepticism Malik had faced for years. How had it come to this? All those times his voice was drowned out, every dismissal, all those times he had felt invisible among countless, bustling faces. This moment was a culmination of those experiences stitched together, and he had the chance to rewrite the narrative. Malik, Mr. Henderson said, his voice slicing through the whispers of the audience, I noticed a shift in your presentation. You did better than I expected. There was a catch in his tone, a hint of surprise masked by the usual tight control. Malik sensed the moment's gravity. This was the validation he had yearned for, yet it felt laced with challenge. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. It means a lot to hear that from you. Each word came slowly, deliberate, as if crafting an armor of confidence. This wasn't merely about receiving praise, it was about standing firm in his beliefs. Tell me, Mr. Henderson pressed, tilting his head slightly as if weighing every syllable, what do you think your project really represents? This was an opportunity to clarify his purpose, to dive deeper into the vision. I want to show that innovation can come from anywhere, even places like ours. It's about breaking barriers and harnessing what's already there, like the sun. We all have energy within us, and I want to be a part of that change. The words flowed, laced with a conviction that had been simmering beneath the surface, yet, Mr. Henderson chose to challenge him. And do you really believe you can make a difference, Malik? What makes you think this will resonate with anyone outside this hall? Each syllable felt like grappling hooks, seeking to drag him back into doubt. Malik's heart raced, a surge of doubt creeping in, but he quickly silenced it. It's not just about the project. It represents empowerment. I have seen too many people wait for change instead of creating it. If I can inspire even a handful to harness their potential, that's a start. His voice quavered but held an intensity that he hadn't realized was possible. Dimar. Henderson's brow furrowed, and for a brief moment, Malik thought he could see a flicker of acknowledgement in his eyes. The challenge wasn't merely about this discussion, it was a mirror reflecting Malik's self-worth, an invitation to recognize his value independent of others' evaluations. "Here's the thing," Mr. Henderson began, his tone shifting, "most young people don't realize the weight of their words. They do not understand that ideas without execution are just dreams. Can you back this up? Can you execute?" Maybe this was the real test, not the glory or accolades, but the challenge to hold on to momentum, to be unwavering in the face of obstacles. "I plan to pursue this further, to test the model in real environments," Malik responded, a steely determination rising within him. "I'll collaborate with local organizations, talk to community members, and create workshops to teach others how to harness solar energy. This is just the beginning." Mr. Henderson's demeanor softened slightly. "If you're willing to put in that effort, you may just prove you're not just a boy with dreams but a catalyst for change." The conversation lingered in the air, each exchanged word thickening the tension before sinking into Malik's chest like a heavy weight. He felt empowered yet unsure of the path ahead. The reality of commitment to a vision weighed on him, but this acknowledgement also sparked a fierce resolve. As he turned to leave, Malik felt something shift within him, a blend of uncertainty and purpose ignited by human connection and belief. He had faced an intimidating figure, yet his determination had reframed his experience, embracing a challenge that promised to test him further. He stepped outside, the cool evening breeze battling the warmth of a victorious glow pulsing through him. The darkness felt less overwhelming now, it was merely the backdrop for the light he aimed to create, yet as he walked away, the question echoed, was he prepared to sustain this energy? Would he follow through on his commitments or risk falling back into the shadows? The dawn of his journey had just begun, and as Malik set his sights on the horizon, he understood he could not afford to lose momentum now. What awaited him next was uncharted, fraught with possibility and peril. Would he rise to the occasion or allow the weight of expectations to smother his flame? Malik's mind raced as he walked away from the hall, a mixture of exhilaration and apprehension swirling together. The breeze felt revitalizing, yet the weight of his commitments pressed heavily on his shoulders. He had convinced someone like Mr. Henderson of his vision. That was no small feat, but now came the real test, taking those words and turning them into action. His first step was gathering support. He needed allies, individuals who shared his passion or at least were open to the idea of change. Malik pulled out his phone and began scrolling through contacts, recognizing the vast potential of collaboration. He had met several like-minded peers during his school years, each with unique skills in different domains. He drafted a text to Aisha, his friend who had a flair for graphic design and environmental advocacy. "Hey Aisha. I want to catch up and discuss a project I'm passionate about. Can we meet up?" The reply came faster than he anticipated. "Sure. Cafe on 5th. Within an hour, Malik was sitting across from her, the scent of fresh coffee surrounding them. Aisha's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "So what's this project about?" He took a deep breath, feeling the bubbling excitement in his chest. "It's about harnessing solar energy, making it accessible for everyone, especially in our community. I want to create workshops to educate people on how they can leverage it." Aisha's brow arched. "That's ambitious, Malik. But how do you plan to get people interested?" Malik hesitated, a ripple of doubt tugging at his gut. "I'll talk to local organizations, pitch the idea, get funding if I can." His voice faltered as the enormity of the plan loomed larger. "But I need help to structure the workshops, design the materials, and you're focusing too much on the logistics, Malik." Aisha interrupted gently, her tone supportive. "Start small. Host a discussion group. Get people talking about renewable energy. Build it from there. You know your community, meet them where they are." Her words clicked into place, like pieces of a puzzle. Malik realized that the heart of his mission wasn't just in the technical aspects but in sparking conversations, igniting interest. A simple discussion could lead to an entire movement. "That makes sense," Malik said, the flame of determination rekindling within him. "I'll host weekly meetups at the library. We can brainstorm ideas together." Aisha nodded approvingly. "Exactly. Let us create flyers, share it online. We want to get as many people as possible." With newfound purpose, Malik began crafting a plan. The act of mapping out those initial meetups felt liberating. It transformed their idea from abstract to tangible. He and Aisha worked for hours, their energy contagious. As they finalized the flyer design, Malik couldn't help but envision the potential outcomes. A small ripple could turn into a wave, yet amid this growing excitement, the familiar gnawing fear returned. What if no one showed up? What if his efforts amounted to nothing? He tried to shake it off, but it stuck like a shadow. As the sun began to set, casting an orange hue across the sky, Malik felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. He needed to shift his mindset. This was his moment to rise, to refuse any social shadow. Yet, as he left the cafe, holding the flyer tightly in his hand, a thought struck him. The upcoming meetups could expose him not just to others, but to himself. What if he stood in front of those people and found his own words faltering? Would he still be able to muster the conviction he felt in that moment? His heart raced as he pondered the implications. Could he truly face the fear of failure? The journey ahead promised growth or collapse. As he lay awake that night, Malik understood that the next few days would carve his identity anew. But in the silence of his room, the question loomed: would he be able to transform his doubts into a source of strength, or would they consume him? The dawn broke with an unsettling mix of promise and anxiety. Malik's stomach churned as he readied himself for the first discussion group. He had spent the morning pacing his apartment, rehearsing his introduction in front of the mirror, but every attempt felt hollow. What if he stumbled over his words? What if his passion didn't radiate the way he hoped? Each moment dragged as he arrived at the library. The smell of old books flooded his senses. The quiet hum of the place brought both reassurance and discomfort. He set up a few chairs in a circle, laying out the flyers on a table designed to draw attention. He stared at them, blanched blue text on a stark white background, and a lump formed in his throat. At precisely 6 o'clock, a trickle of people began to enter. They filtered in shyly, glancing around, uncertain. Malik's heart raced. Who were these faces, and did they care? The old fears crept back in, whispering that he was in over his head. "Hey everyone," Malik began, his voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. He cleared his throat. "Thank you for coming. I'm Malik, and I'm excited to talk about renewable energy, specifically solar power." He felt the weight of their eyes upon him, seeking answers, understanding. He struggled against the suffocating pressure of expectation. As the conversation unfolded, participants began to share their experiences and questions. To Malik's surprise, enthusiasm flared, ideas sparked like the sun's rays. He stepped back, allowing the dialogue to flow, the insecurities fading into the background. Aisha sat across from him, beaming, often chiming in with insights that gave Malik strength. "Imagine if we documented our journey," she suggested during a lull. "We could create a blog or a social media page to engage with more people." Malik felt a surge of confidence. This wasn't just about solar panels, it was about a larger connection, a narrative they could weave together. He glanced around the circle, recognizing that he wasn't alone anymore, but amidst the shared excitement, his anxiety flickered again. As they wrapped up the session, Malik sensed the shift within himself. He had not only shared his knowledge, he had formed bonds. Yet he still questioned, what if the next group didn't feel this invigorated? What if they were met with indifference instead of passion? Later that evening, while lying in bed, the exhilaration transformed into reflection. What if he continued to set these meetups, only to find dwindling attendance or disinterest? Would that signify failure, or was it merely a part of the journey? Determined to face these fears, He formulated a twofold strategy: he would maintain these discussions while also reaching out for more voices. He texted a few additional contacts, people who were influential in other areas of renewable energy, hoping to invite them as guest speakers for future sessions. Then, an unexpected thought struck him: perhaps it wasn't solely about receiving validation from others. What did he want to gain from this? The answer lingered in his mind like an anchor. He craved the capability to inspire, not just through concepts but through tangible community impact, showing others how to contribute to sustainable change. With renewed focus, Malik plotted out the next few topics for upcoming discussions. Inspired voices could ripple outward, illuminating paths he'd yet to perceive. But with this sense of purpose grew another whirlwind of dread. Would his vision align with the reality of his community? How would he handle criticism or differing opinions? Just as he began to drift off, the nagging thought of confrontation settled in. The time had come to face not just the potential failure of his initiative, but the need to challenge his own emerging voice in a crowd. He craved the authenticity of constructive dialogue, yet feared the repercussions of dissent. The day arrived when Malik would host his second discussion group. A sense of dread slithered into his thoughts as he prepared. Unlike the previous session, which had bubbled with excitement, he couldn't shake the persistent feeling that this time would be different. The anticipation gnawed at him, and he wondered if he had lost the rapport he had so newly formed. As he paced his modest apartment, he replayed the scenario in his mind: what if only a few people showed up? What if they came with skepticism instead of warmth? Malik's gut twisted at each anxious thought. He inhaled deeply, forcing a calm presence as he grabbed his notes and headed for the library once more. The library's familiar ambience washed over him, muffling the chaotic drum of his heart. He arranged the chairs as he had before, but this time his confidence felt precarious, like a child balancing on a tightrope. The clock ticked slowly, and the vulnerability of waiting drew him into a claustrophobic silence. At 7 o'clock, he found himself surrounded by an unexpected crowd. A more diverse group trickled in, this time a blend of ages and backgrounds, each face echoing a different story. Malik hesitated. A part of him wanted to retreat, to let the moment drift away, but that was no longer an option. He was compelled to move forward. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steadier than before. "I'm glad to see so many new faces tonight." As the discussion kicked off, Malik lost himself in the rhythm of dialogue once again. Voices mingled, passionate ideas emerged, and what could have spiraled into tension instead turned into a thoughtful conversation about practical ways to implement solar energy in their neighborhood. The diverse perspectives held promise. Some were skeptical but called for evidence and clarity, while others eagerly reached for more substantial discussions around practical solutions. Yet, amid this constructive engagement, Malik noted a few critical eyes framing their objections. Their challenging comments felt like barbs and stung his fervor. His heart raced as he confronted the balance of sharing knowledge while also defending his past assertions. In the face of critical appraisal, self-doubt began to creep in. How could he convince them? Breathing through the tension coiling in his chest, Malik recalled Aisha's earlier suggestion about documenting their experiences. A thought sparked in his mind: what if he invited them to not only participate but also contribute as co-authors of this initiative? What if he turned the criticism into an asset, showcasing that differing opinions could coexist? This could propel their collective dialogue and provide a pathway to deeper understanding. "How about this?" Malik proposed, his voice more animated. "We can create a shared digital space where everyone can contribute their insights, whether they are suggestions, criticisms, or experiences. This way, we all have a stake in this conversation." The reaction was mixed, but a few nods of agreement emerged, and the critical eyes softened. They were intrigued, curious about what an open platform could yield. In that moment, he realized he was reminded of his initial desire. It wasn't just about legislation and concepts anymore. It was about learning together, navigating the complexities of their discussions. As the meeting closed, Malik's heart brimmed with excitement and trepidation. He had harnessed a potential collaboration that could foster deeper dialogue, although he still sensed the shadow of criticism looming nearby. The whispers of doubt resurfaced. Would they embrace this new idea, Or would the interplay of opinions fracture the fragile connection he had worked to establish? That night, Malik allowed himself to dream about the possibilities, aware that he was walking a tightrope waiting on the edge of communal conversation, challenging his own voice against the backdrop of differing opinions. He flipped through his notes and envisioned each member contributing, but the undercurrent of tension simmered. Would this bold strategy pay off? The next question loomed before him: if the collaboration faltered, would he have the courage to adapt again? As the days passed following the discussion group, Malik's mind danced between excitement and uncertainty. The prospect of the shared digital space both thrilled him and sowed seeds of doubt. He spent evenings drafting a framework for this initiative, meticulously refining his approach, but the voices of skepticism echoed louder than before. Could he truly navigate the complexities of varied opinions and drive productive conversations? The urge to retreat surged within him. His apartment, once a sanctuary of creative thoughts, now felt like a confining echo chamber. He could either confront the doubts head-on or let them fester, creating ripples of anxiety that would derail him. One evening, unable to bear the stagnant atmosphere anymore, Malik stepped out into the crisp night air, desperate for clarity. He meandered toward the park, the moonlight illuminating the path ahead. Each step he took was a reckoning with his inner turmoil. The pressure of being the catalyst for change weighed heavily on him. Suddenly, he stopped, observing a cluster of individuals engaging in animated conversation by the park bench. Their laughter was infectious, a reminder of the warmth of community he yearned to cultivate. "What do you think is holding me back?" he muttered under his breath, wrestling with his self-imposed expectations. A faint whisper returned, an echo of his earlier resolve: the fear of failure. It stung, resounding a truth he had kept at As he seated himself on a nearby bench. He watched their dynamic exchanges. They were diverse, different backgrounds, stories, and ideas colliding in a beautiful chaos. Those moments crystallized for Malik a realization: he could not expect harmonious dialogues without fostering a sense of belonging. He would have to invite vulnerability for himself and others. To do that, he needed to be willing to expose his uncertainties and invite others to share theirs. With renewed determination, Malik returned home and tapped away on his laptop. "What if we begin with our personal stories?" he typed. "Let us discuss not just ideas but the experiences that shape our view on solar energy." The concept felt different, liberating. Even it was an opportunity to bring humanity into the technicalities, to transcend mere data. That Friday, when the digital invitation went live, Malik felt elated, yet petrified. The initial responses were positive, but the anticipation gnawed like a persistent itch. What if they hungered only for conventional debates? Or worse, what if they felt exposed in sharing their stories? The day of the first open forum arrived, and Malik sat in front of his laptop, nerves raging. The screen displayed familiar faces, each one a personal narrative waiting to unfold. He initiated the conversation with his own story, a pivotal moment from his childhood that was a collision of dreams and realities, a time when he realized the power of sustainable solutions amidst personal challenges. With every word, his vulnerability opened a door that welcomed others to step in. People began to share, slowly at first, but soon the digital space buzzed with stories of struggle and inspiration. Confessions of doubt mingled with aspirations, tearing down barriers Malik had feared would hold them back. They were united now, forging connections beyond ideas. Just as a wave of hope washed over him, a critique landed sharply in the midst of their discourse. But how realistic is it to expect people to change habits they've held for years? A participant challenged, frowning at the screen. Malik's stomach twisted. The discomfort shot through him, but he fought the urge to retreat. "I appreciate that perspective," he responded, steadied by the vulnerability he had previously shared. "The change isn't about them alone. It starts with conversations like this, where we confront our fears together." It was raw, unfiltered, but Malik felt something shift internally, the realization that he no longer stood alone in this arena. As the discussion unfolded, the tension transformed into a feeling of commitment across their conversation. Malik recognized that indeed, adapting was not just a necessity, it became his strength. In that realization, he was armed with a new ability to evolve, to endure, and to embrace the unknown, but as the session drew to a close, an undercurrent of anxiety rippled through him. Would they come back? With hope and urgency, he pondered whether the next session could delve deeper into their narratives or if he would find himself faced with the same trepidation all over again. The question weighed on him: if they turned away, could he still conjure the courage to reshape the conversation yet again? The days that followed the discussion ebbed and flowed with a mixture of exhilaration and dread. Malik found himself oscillating between self-assurance and crippling doubt. The feedback from the participants was positive, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that he was teetering on the edge of something monumental. One wrong step could derail his progress. He spent hours immersed in his thoughts, parsing through every comment and sentiment. Were they genuinely engaged, or merely nodding along to be polite? This preoccupation with external validation gnawed at his resolve. One night, he caught his reflection in the darkened window, the city lights flickering behind him, and realized he was looking for approval where he should seek growth. Determined to propel forward, Malik set a new strategy. He began to journal his reflections after each session, capturing not only the discussions but his emotions, reactions, and newly ignited aspirations. This process revealed a pattern, a recurring theme of vulnerability transforming into strength. He reflected on each story shared, how deeply personal experiences unraveled the tapestry of their collective understanding. The humanity embedded in those moments inspired him, urging him to deepen his engagement. As the second session approached, he found himself caught in a web of fear once more. What if this next meeting descended into chaos? Yet, amidst that fear lay an opportunity. Malik recollected his own conflicting emotions and the power they harbored. He decided to embrace those feelings, to use them as tools instead of shackles. The night prior, he rehearsed his opening lines, intentionally allowing his nervous energy to morph into a speech that was honest and raw. The clock ticked down to the next meeting. Malik joined the virtual space, heart racing, but with a profound sense of agency. He introduced the session with a commitment to vulnerability. Let us not just talk about ideas, let us delve deeper into what truly drives us, he urged. Responses flooded the chat with stories of personal failures and lessons learned. Someone shared a childhood accident that ignited their passion for renewable energy, while another spoke of their parents' struggles to adapt to sustainable practices. As the narratives intertwined, Malik held the space for them. He listened as they shared triumphs and defeats, forging an environment where they felt safe to lay bare their apprehensions. But just as Malik began to feel the momentum shift toward a rewarding crescendo, another critique emerged, this time sharper and more personal. You still haven't answered my question about feasibility. These stories are heartwarming, but they don't address the truths of our economy. The voice crackled through the speakers, ringing with skepticism that rippled through the initially buoyant atmosphere. Malik's confidence faltered. A swell of anxiety surged to the forefront, blurring his focus. He looked at the faces of colleagues, seeing a mix of concern and curiosity in their expressions. Was this the moment he would crumble under pressure? Instead of retreating into defense, he felt a spark ignite within. He breathed deeply and reframed the conversation, weaving together both the emotional narratives and the hard data needed to influence change within economic contexts. It's not merely about feasibility but about transforming our perspectives to embrace long-term benefits, he replied, articulating the link between personal narratives and practical implications. His resolute shift framed a kind of clarity that the group hadn't seen before. With each word, he anchored the conversation in the tangible realities that lay behind their emotional landscapes. As participants responded with a newfound fervor, Malik could feel an electric connection being forged in the room. By the session's end, he witnessed a transformation not only in his approach but also in their collective mood. It crystallized within him that he was more than just a facilitator, he was a conduit for insight and change. That realization became his compass, guiding him through the evolving challenges ahead. Yet as he closed the meeting, the lingering questions of whether they fully understood and accepted this new dynamic gnawed at him. Would he be able to maintain this trajectory in future sessions, or would he revert to self-doubt when faced with greater resistance? These uncertainties loomed large, reminding him that he was only at the beginning of his journey, a path laden with potential and peril alike. The stakes were rising, and the pressure was on. Malik stared at the screen, heart racing, an audacious thought sparking. What if I took the participants' doubts and framed them as challenges to overcome together? Could he widen the conversation once more? The time had come to confront the pressing truths he had yet to unearth. As Malik prepared for the next meeting, he felt the weight of anticipation pressing on his chest. This was the moment he had been waiting for, an opportunity to shift the narrative from mere discussion to joint action. With a sense of anticipation tinged with trepidation, he drafted a new plan. This time, he wanted to confront the doubts head-on, turning them into collective goals that could pull the group forward. On the day of the session, Malik's nerves were more pronounced than before. He could hear his heart thumping in rhythm with the clock, each tick echoing his doubts. He settled behind his laptop, took a deep breath, and reminded himself that vulnerability was a strength, not a weakness. He committed to creating a space where the voices of uncertainty would not merely be acknowledged but transformed into fuel for progress. The session began as he welcomed everyone, inviting them to share their thoughts on the previous meeting. He could sense the anxiety hanging in the air, palpable yet unspoken. Sensing the hesitance, he opened with transparency. "I've been thinking about the feedback regarding feasibility," he started, maintaining eye contact with the camera. "It's a valid concern, and I'd like us to explore it together." The chat buzzed with varied reactions as he posed questions that encouraged a dialogue rather than a debate. What do we consider feasible? How can we align our personal narratives with the broader economic realities? His timing felt precise, each query acting like a catalyst igniting previously stagnant conversations. Amidst the exchange, Malik noticed a participant hesitating. He was familiar with her story, a passionate environmentalist who often navigated the tension between idealism and practicality. "Jessica, what is holding you back from contributing?" he asked gently, surprised by his directness. She opened up about her frustration with feeling constrained by systemic barriers. Malik seized this moment. "Exactly, Jessica. The system often presents us with rigid frameworks. But let us envision what it could look like if we dismantle those constraints together," he encouraged. That remark began to resonate, cascading across the room like a ripple. Participants started to reflect on the systemic barriers that constrained them, infusing energy into the discussion. They began articulating their hesitations, from budget limitations to corporate biases. Malik felt an exhilarating shift occur. They were no longer deflecting or defending but genuinely collaborating. As the hours raced by, he sensed that they were blending their fears with their aspirations. Transformative potential filled the virtual space. Malik steered discussions toward tangible action plans, mapping out a path that connected their individual goals with greater economic realities. "Let us not forget, every challenge we face can become motivation for a new approach," he reminded them. Towards the end of the session, Malik summoned the courage to reveal his own vulnerability. "I often grapple with self-doubt. I worry if I'm truly effective in facilitating these conversations or merely spinning my wheels. But I believe together, we can turn our uncertainties into opportunities." An electric silence followed. Members of the group began to express their own struggles in embracing doubt, forging a collective camaraderie that had never existed before. It was in this shared space that Malik discovered something powerful: the bravery to own his doubts while inspiring others to take risks as well. Yet beneath the surface of this triumph lay a nagging question: would this newfound connection withstand future conflicts? As the participants signed off with enthusiasm, Malik felt a flicker of doubt re-emerge. Was this the true beginning of their journey, or merely a temporary high? The thought hung like a cloud in his mind. Now he had ignited a fire. Could he keep it burning against the inevitable winds of skepticism that would follow? The moment had come to reflect deeper truths, not just about his journey, but those of the people he sought to inspire. With a resolve building within, he pondered, what truths still remain concealed within these stories? How do we unearth them and leverage their power? The path ahead loomed large. He could sense the quickening pulse of challenges just around the corner. The weeks had rolled by, and Malik found himself standing in front of a crowd that now regularly filled the room for their workshops on renewable energy. What had once felt like an overwhelming endeavor had crystallized into something tangible, a burgeoning community of voices, united in the belief that change was not just possible but necessary. Tonight, they were all there to participate, to work together, to craft a brighter future. "Good evening, everyone," Malik called out, excitement bubbling in his chest. "I am thrilled to see so many familiar faces. Your commitment is what drives this movement." Malik reflected on his journey thus far. He remembered that uncertain boy who had hesitated before his peers and faced derision instead of encouragement. The doubt, the fear of ridicule, once clouded his vision, but now, they had clarified his purpose. Each workshop had not only equipped others with knowledge but had also transformed him profoundly. He had become a leader. At the culmination of the recent series of workshops, they had successfully launched a community initiative to install solar panels on several local buildings. Each panel not only promised to reduce energy costs but symbolized something much larger: a collective empowerment, a statement against the circumstances that sought to bind them. As Malik prepared for the evening session, he knew there was something he needed to address. The community had made strides, but they still felt the tremors of doubt whenever external critics questioned their resolve. Instead of cringing in fear, Malik decided to confront those worries head-on. "Tonight, let us talk about our achievements, but also our setbacks," he suggested, watching as the audience leaned forward, intrigued. "It's critical to acknowledge what we're afraid of and challenge those fears together." The openness of the room echoed his own journey. They began sharing experiences, stories of frustrations, hurdles faced with city permits, and budget constraints. For the first time, they were not just fellow workshop participants but co-conspirators navigating the tides of ambition and reality. Malik invited each of them to explore not only their aspirations but also potential obstacles. "Remember, every setback is a setup for a comeback. How can we adapt?" Malik encouraged. Each story resonated deeply, reminding him that vulnerability can forge stronger connections. They exchanged ideas for overcoming obstacles. Someone suggested leveraging local government grants, while another shared insights on crowdfunding. The room buzzed with hope. They were brainstorming solutions, no longer burdened solely with doubts. As Malik's confidence soared, he recalled how far he had come. The boy who worried and feared had transformed into a young man who embraced challenges. He prompted them to consider their impact, not just in terms of their immediate community but in a broader context. What if our success here inspires neighboring communities to take their own steps toward renewable energy? The answers flowed forth like a river unbound as his peers envisioned the ripple effects of their accomplishments. They began to draft plans to engage others, reaching out to nearby schools, and initiating partnerships with local businesses. Malik smiled, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction and pride. They were not just participants of change, they were catalysts of inspiration. Of course, the journey had not escaped scrutiny. In the subsequent sessions, critics voiced their skepticism louder. How sustainable is this initiative for the long run? A community elder challenged during one of their meetings. Emboldened by his growth, Malik met the scrutiny with fervor. "It's not just about immediate results, it's about creating a movement. It's about fostering change that transcends us. How can we build a legacy for future generations?" That question ignited a powerful discussion about sustainability, investment in local resources, and the importance of training others to continue the work. Malik watched as ideas transformed into tangible action plans as they explored mentorship programs and patient investments. The discourse became a springboard for innovation, and the audience, once skeptical, became advocates for progress. The evening drew to a close, but Malik felt more empowered than ever. He took a moment to glance around the room filled with hopeful faces, reflecting on the journey they had all undertaken. He had achieved an incredible transformation, establishing his identity as a leader and an innovator. He stood up, looking around at the people whose lives had intermingled with his own journey. Malik had turned fear into strength, vulnerability into a network of empowerment. He drew a deep breath, allowing the moment to crystallize within him. "Thank you all for your commitment. Together, we're not just part of a conversation about renewable energy, we are writing the future," he declared, confidence spilling from his voice. As the applause erupted, Malik embraced his new reality. He had conquered his doubts, transformed his fear into inspiration, and forged a community committed to uplift and innovate. In that moment, it was clear his work was about more than just solar panels. It was about the light they could cast together. Malik had proven to himself and to everyone in that room that their voices mattered, that change was within reach, and that he would never again allow doubt to cloud his vision. He stepped down, exhilaration pulsing through him. This was just the beginning of a journey that stretched far beyond the boundaries he once thought insurmountable. Now more than ever, Malik was fueled by purpose, ambition, and an undeniable sense of achievement. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending below. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.